يسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Respected and honorable listeners, Alhamdulillah, first and foremost I would like to thank the Islamic Circle of Southern Africa under Dr. Shabir Saab and his team for inviting me and affording me the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful initiative. I would also like to thank the Khidmah organization for allowing ICSA and giving them the opportunity to organize this program. As we all know, youth is our greatest resource in shaping our tomorrow. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah accepts such effort, and I hope and wish we have the du'as and the blessings of all our brothers and sisters, young and old, to make this kind of programs a great success and a legacy for others to take from. Most of the time, you know well that many of us, especially the elderly, complain that what are we doing for our youth? But just complaining is not going to help until we roll up our sleeves and get down to do something. We have to start somewhere, no matter how small the initiative may be, but it has to be with sincerity. And inshallah we will see positive results from it. Today we live in a society that every person, whether he is or she is qualified or not, has an opinion about something. But very few have the solution. So I am pleased to be part of this organization because I see this organization and other organizations similar to this that are having a solution rather than just complaining. So inshallah, mashallah to ICSA for your efforts in organizing this youth. Allah keep you steadfast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. وقال تعالى أيضا وَلَا يَزَالُونَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ حَتَّى يَرُدُّوكُمْ عَنْ دِينِهِ. وقال تعالى أيضا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, my topic is atheism, also known as Dahriya and also known as Mulhid. This is Urdu Arabic. This word is derived from the Greek word atheos, meaning without gods, godless. Hence, an atheist is one who does not believe in gods. Understand well, not God, gods. The term atheism is a peculiarly modern phenomenon. It is born from Jainism, Buddhism and Hinduism, because all these different religions do not believe in a creator God. Whilst this term was coined in Europe as late as the 16th century, particularly in France, and it is only known to be used in the English literature in 1566. There's a very interesting article that you can Google and read up by Nigel Barber. Nigel Barber has written on why atheism replaces religion in developed countries, especially in social democracies of Europe. He goes on to say there are virtually no atheists in underdeveloped countries. His research shows that atheism increases along with quality of life. For example, this is his research and stats. In Sweden, 64% are non-believers. In Denmark, 48%. In France, 44%. And Germany, 42%. In contrast, the incidence of atheism in most sub-Saharan countries is below 1%. Research shows that strong correlations between atheism and intelligence. Most college-educated people become victim of atheism. Atheism blossoms amid affluence, and religion is used as a tool of protection from hardships and difficulties or uncertainties. People who feel more in control of their lives feel less the need for religion. I shall pause here and ask you to kindly note two very key points and make reference to these points from a Quranic perspective. Number one, atheism increases with affluence, quality of life. Note this. Number two, people who feel more in control of their lives, they hardly need or they feel the less need for religion. You can also make reference to a book called Why God Shall Not Go Away. Now, respected listeners, we are wired to believe in one God from two unanimously agreed methods of gaining knowledge with certainty. Gaining knowledge with certainty. Number one is revelation, revealed knowledge. This is the one. Number two, acquired knowledge, which is known as observation and experiment. These are two sources that are agreed not only by us, but it is a unanimously agreed methods of gaining knowledge with certainty. Now we know for the fact the original creed of Islam throughout is Tawheed, monotheism. It is very, very clear in the Quran. And this Quran is not free from any doubt. We know that it's a challenge not from now. It has always been a challenge and it has never been proved otherwise. For example, in the Quran, in Juz 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alastu bi rabbikum? Qalu bala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kul huwa Allahu ahad. And there are many other verses, but just to quote to you a few. La ilaha illa huwa al-hayyu al-qayyum. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not destroyed the atheist, or the kafir, or the mushrik, is good enough testimony to His infinite mercy and ilahiyat. Hence, rejecting or denying God becomes a proof of God. Now, if you look at the Quran, we know not only Muslims, non-Muslims have challenged, and unfortunately nobody can prove it is unauthentic. But if you look at Christianity, Paul or Paulus or Saint Paul, and all those implicated for contaminating and altering the authentic creed of the noble prophets, be it Musa, Isa, and others before them, this is the reason for rejection based upon illogical and contradictory statements or articles of faith. That's why Islam is so strict on authenticity. We don't want a generation to come after and find that certain aspects of our belief especially are based upon unauthentic facts. Likewise, you'll find the argument that is used that in science, that which cannot be seen, exists not, is flawed. As many new discoveries in science, biology, cosmology were never seen before, hence rejected. For example, we in this room, it will be extremely naive for us to be sitting here and just being here from before, for example, and we don't believe anything exists outside this room, just because we have not seen. Yes, the most what we can say is we don't know, I don't know. But until we see signs of life, we cannot deny. Imam Razi, the great scholar of Islam, said, even a 2-year-old will know when a stone is thrown at him, he will believe that it appears somewhere due to the inherent belief of cause and effect. Imam Shafi gave a very deep answer about the oneness of Allah, and he said, looking at the mulberry leaf, he said, when a silkworm eats it, it produces silk. When a bee eats it, it produces honey. When sheep eat it, it produces milk. When a gazelle eats it, it produces musk. It is the same leaf that they are eating, yet look at these unique results from it. So in that lies the deep answer of believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This cannot be by chance. Hence our bodies, our physical bodies, and the larger bodies of the galaxy universe function so precisely, so accurately, that cosmologists observe and are left bewildered to believe in the presence of a creator, a designer, rather than deny a super designer and creator. And there is just too many astonishing signs that leave students of these subjects bewildered and amazed. Therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says time and again in the Quran, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And Allah also says in other places of the Quran, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Who be to those on the day of Qiyamah that have denied and are part of those who are liars. Now if you look at Islam's take on these issues, scientific issues, biology, science, it is very authentic. On the other hand, if you look at Hinduism, what is their take to basic things like the earthquake? They believe that the earth is sitting on one horn of the cow, and when it gets tired, it shifts it to the other horn. When that happens, there's an earthquake. It doesn't meet up with science and the observation. So therefore, it is just rejected. But the Quran, until today, leave Muslims, I'm talking about non-Muslim great scholars, cannot ever find one aspect of the Quran on science, biology, cosmology, you name it, to flaw it or even question it. So you will find, it's a fact that we hear about it, we see it, that as time progresses, we find more and more scientists, more and more doctors, more and more neurologists, more and more cosmologists, more and more philosophers. They are accepting Islam from the facts of the Quran. They all accept Islam after studying, researching, observing, and then finding a manual that is plus minus 1400 and so odd years old, talking about the modern discoveries. If this is not good enough for all to know and see, then what more evidence is needed for the seekers of truth? For example, you take post 9/11. It is a fact. After 9/11, 34,000 people accepted Islam. Bill Clinton visited Pakistan. He acknowledged on his official visit, Islam is the fastest growing religion. The Quran and Islam need no evidence. The truth is loud and clear for all to see, unless you are blind and deaf. This is the Quran. Unfortunately, with remorse and sadness, respected sisters, brothers in Islam, we failed the Quran, and we continue to do so, be it on most levels. This is the fact of the matter. From politics to business, ethics to education, morals to manners. Hence, most honest people will declare that had they met Muslims, perhaps their fate would not be the same, like they met the Quran first. This revealed knowledge, if it is tempered, altered, becomes the reason of contempt and mockery, hence rejection altogether. John Bloom has written Christianity and Atheism. He's written a book, Christianity and Atheism, Choose Your Stranger. To be an atheist is to be a materialist, meaning that only matter and laws that govern matter exist. He says Christianity, if you realize or read, and it seems strange to you regarding, this concept of God is one in three, God is three in one, all these confusing matters. If you find this strange, then he says the atheist kind of outlook in life and belief is even more stranger, because he says they believe the entire universe originated from nowhere, especially after they scoffed at Isa alayhi salam's birth. And the Quran so beautifully answers this, that if Isa alayhi salam's birth is something that you reject, how do you not reject Adam alayhi salam's birth? So these silencing answers given from the Quran. So let us now analyze the main cause and wider meaning of atheism, not from their writings, not just from philosophers, but from the Quran itself. In the Quran you'll find the word lahad is used. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُلْهِدُونَ is used. Now this word lahad actually means, it is made up of 3 letters, the lam, ha and dal. These 3 letters mean, the original meaning means to abandon and leave the correct path. Basically, ilhad, doing ilhad with the attributes and names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entails and means to give it up Allah's names and attributes, to give it up to Allah and give it to somebody else. Yani that which is not befitting to Allah, to attribute it to Allah. Or something which belongs to Allah, to give that attribute to anybody else. That's basically ilhad. Now if I just stop here, and you take this ayat of the Quran, it is good enough to answer what is a mulhid all about. Something which is not deserving, that's what he has claimed. Likewise, if we go on technically, what is the meaning of ilhad? It means al-maylu amma yajibu i'tiqaduhu wa amaluhu, which means abandoning that which is compulsory to believe in, or abandoning that which is compulsory to act upon, is actually called ilhad. Now you will also notice in the Quran, it is quite amazing. Allah uses the term zulumat in the plural, and He uses nur in the singular. This is a sign to us that there will be many, many dark parts, but the light part is just one. And that one, as you know, the Quran says, Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. Which again means that all the religions that came before, when the prophets brought them, they were in the original state, and all of them are called Islam. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Whether it is Yahudiyat, Nasraniyat, or any other term, these are man-given titles. They were not the original state. Nevertheless, Allah says, Inna alladhina yulhiduna fi ayatina. Regarding this, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas has given the tafsir of this. He said, what is the meaning of yulhiduna fi ayatina? He says, it is yankuruna wa yukadhibuna, which means to reject or to belie. Now, the important question for us as believers is, why is this atheism kind of spreading amongst believers? Many people who tell you that we are living in a time that so many times born Muslims, or Muslims who are living as minorities and associate with the Western society or go to universities, many of them actually give up and they call themselves ex-Muslim. So therefore you'll find this is a dangerous thing, and it's a concern for us. Because when we read the Quran again, you'll find all the prophets. Take the example of Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. What was their biggest, greatest concern? Yaqub alayhi salam comes from a generation of prophets, Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we know this entire generation. Yet when he is leaving and departing from this world, he calls his children. And the Quran says, أَمْ كُنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءَ إِذْ حَضَرَ يَعْقُوبَ الْمَوْتِ إِذْ قَالَ لِبَنِيهِ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. Which means that, look at his concern. He's saying to his children, when I leave this world, what are you going to worship? And what he wanted to hear, he wanted to hear the legacy of Tawheed. That we know the sacrifices that Ibrahim alayhi salam has done for them. So what is he telling us? He's telling his children, do not give up Iman. Believing in the unseen is true Iman. As the reason being, there's no doubt in this matter. Most prophets came to the nation of Bani Israel. And the question is, why so many prophets? No other nation had got so many prophets. The reason being, the more problems in a nation, the more prophets needed. And their problems was concerning i'tiqad and amal. There was an ascension and descension of the Bani Israel. We know it is famously known as Uruj wa Nuzul. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them right up and gave them honor and power. And they brought themselves right down. And Allah kept on giving them opportunity after opportunity. Yet, they never took the lesson. Why I'm bringing this? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in a Sahih authentic hadith that be aware and understand the downfall of the Bani Israel, because you will be following the Bani Israel foot by foot, print by print. And he went further to make this very clear. He said, if they go into a lizard's hole, you will follow them. And we see it today. Muslim scholars, Muslim teachers, and other professional people that travel the world can see the impact of the Western society, or you can say the legacy of the people of Bani Israel upon the Muslims. Allah save us and keep us strong on Iman. Now, one of the effects of the Bani Israel was that they were slaves. And slavery was a great dent to dignity. Why? Because the slave takes his master to be God. And you'll find, we need to ask the question, today there isn't that type of slavery. But there's another slavery, a mental slavery. And this is also dangerous, because what happens in this form, we become slaves to the created rather than to the creator. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged the freeing of slaves, and he encouraged this amongst his Sahaba as well. Why? Because a slave is opinionless. He's got no opinion, no say. Whatever his master says, he accepts it. And there's a great poet of Imam, the great scholar of Pakistan, the poet, when he mentions, he says, "Bharosa kar nahi sakte gulamo ki basirat par, ke dunya mein faqat mardane hur aanke hai bina." Well, he says there's no worthiness on the opinion, or the say, Allama Iqbal has said this, on the slaves notion. You have to be a free person, and the weakness of faith translates in the weakness of character. Now, if you look at the Bani Israel, they wanted to worship a calf. Their poor character was indicative and reflective of the mind being enslaved. The Bani Israel were literally slaves in Egypt, and you find they refused stubbornly to be freed by Nabi Musa and many prophets that came before and after. Allah cannot be captured in our minds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them, كُلَّمَا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ بِمَا لَا تَهْوَى أَنفُسُهُمْ فَرِيقًا كَذَّبُوا وَفَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ. Any revelation that came and was not compatible with their desires, that revelation was shunned. We are victims of that legacy. Religion is hardly desirable anymore. When Allah says فَرِيقًا كَذَّبُوا, He uses it in the past tense, meaning that there were groups of people that used to belie them. And He said فَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ, and there were groups that constantly killed and tried to kill. And this is exactly what happens right up to this time. When there are people that speak the truth and speak the authentic creed, then we know what is happening in the world. Whether you're in Pakistan, whether you're in Syria, whether you're in Iraq, whether you're in Arabia, you know what happens to scholars that speak the truth, scholars that have got no fear of the created and only fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will find many a times, in great numbers, they are silenced. From character assassination to assassinating them physically. So nevertheless, these people belied and they continue to kill and try to kill. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the moral state of affairs was so low that Isa alayhi salam had to be sent. And Isa alayhi salam's, his focus was on the character of people. That's why you'll find Christianity in the modern day puts a lot of emphasis on good, noble character. Not so much on Aqidah, like how Hazrat Musa alayhi salam did. Nevertheless, the Quran says, سَمَّعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ, and it says, أَكَّالُونَ لِلسُّحْتِ. Be extremely, this is the kind of nature of these people. They're extremely attentive upon lies and consumers of riba. Now see how accurate the Quran is regarding the root cause of atheism, which I mentioned to you earlier. That it is affluence, number one, and number two, it is, does anyone remember what's number two? So to see, nobody sleeps. There were two main causes that was mentioned by these scholars of philosophy, etc. Number one is affluence. And number two, yes, very good, thanks. Control. Now I just want you to see what the Quran says. The Quran uses these two words, سَمَّعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ and أَكَّالُونَ لِلسُّحْتِ. Sensationalism, news, propaganda sells very easy. Exaggeration, false information is what is most accepted today in what we read, what we listen to. If you check fiction versus non-fiction, hardly people want non-fiction. Everybody wants fiction. Right up to our daily items that we use, try to understand it in a broader perspective. Whether we sell things, whether you are purchasing things, whether it is the news, you'll find things are so exaggerated, not only in price, but also in quality. And what happens to this? We're living in a kind of a fake world. From the things we eat, the things we consume, the things we purchase, how they advertise, it is people are like, we call it brand washed. We basically believe in a brand and you become brainwashed as well. So this is the one thing of Sama'un al-Kalim. On a huge scale as well, when it comes from national level, what governments are selling, what is the reality, etc. On the other hand, akalun al-sur, which means those that suck the blood out of innocent people who drink the blood of others. Now if you look at this, the economic systems are mostly majority riba-based systems. Tax upon tax, inflation. Look at the stock markets, look at the global markets, look at who is controlling society. It is the bankers. Who pays for research at universities? From these universities that then produce or have the great scholars behind their products. It is all these bankers and these huge companies that control the entire economic system. From medicine to education, from trade to aid, it is a vicious circle of riba. And we feel, so what happens now? When these powerful people, they become to feel they are in control. And when they are in control, because they have control all these avenues where people's risk is there. So what happens to them? They're enslaved through wealth. And we have this kind of mental attitude, whether it's coming from the top. When this is happening from the top, it has to have a ripple effect. That is why the Prophet ﷺ was so keen on maintaining the Khilafah. And if you read the authentic creed, read it, study it, check the Quran, see how much of emphasis is put on this, that the Khilafah system, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, there was no janazah until the next Khalifa was appointed. We know it's a fact. It's in the Quran, it is so clear, you cannot miss it. This whole concept is about what? Because when you control and there is righteousness from there, then it has a ripple effect. Today, we as minorities, wherever you go, Muslims are trying, there is sincere efforts. We do realize that. But we have to realize that it is, it is like, our little efforts here, and all these efforts with all the means and power and authority they have, what happens in this case? You have a very little effect. And had it been on the other side, then you'll see how powerful. That is why, if these are powerful governments that are in control of the world today, then obviously they are having all these riches of the world, control of the world, they have to push a concept of atheism. It has to come. Whether it's going to come from the universities, whether it's going to come from the literature, whether it's going to make people to believe that they are in power, they are in control. And once you start working into the system, it comes into you naturally, how hard you may try, but it's very difficult to avoid. Therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and protect our youth. Amen. And the Prophet ﷺ said, يَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ لَا يُبَالِي الْمَرْءُ مَا أَخَذَهُ عَنْهُ أَمِنَ الْحَلَالِ أَوِ الْحَرَامِ. There will come a time when everything will have a price. People will not be concerned what is coming to them, is it halal or haram. He mentioned riba has 70 stages. The lowest stage of riba is like having fornication with your mother. This is in the hadith.